The Sharks wrap up their preseason with a 4-3 overtime loss to the LA Kings in Salt Lake City. We're going to discuss who stood out, talk about the chaos power play. I'm going to make my final roster predictions before Monday's cut down. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at Inside the Rink. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everyday, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube as well. And the Sharks finish up their preseason with a 4-3 overtime loss to the LA Kings in Salt Lake City. And this one, normally we do these episodes where we kind of talk about the big things. We talk about kind of the stats and then, kind of another topic. But this game, there's no stats, I guess, because it was in a different arena. That's not an NHL arena. They couldn't do the stats like Natural Stat Trick, who I use for a lot of my, all the fancy stats. Nothing. So it's not like this game was moved. This is my one grumble about it. It's not like this game was moved here like last second. Like we knew this game was going to be in there. We can't get no ice time, no nothing for this game. We know who scored. We know got penalties, like your really, really, really basic stats, and that's about it. Nothing else with it. So, but Sharks, interesting game from the Sharks because it was, the Kings score and the Sharks would come back. Kings score, Sharks would come back. Kings score, Sharks would come back. And I think we saw pretty close to the opening night roster in this game. And there was definitely some things to take away from this potential opening night roster. And I think let's start with Mikael Granlund and kind of the center position right now, especially with Logan Couture, who's not expected to be ready for the start of the season. Still wasn't on the ice. Basically, David Quentin came out and said everything, all but don't expect Couture out there for the start of the season. But Mikael Granlund played his first game in teal tonight, and there was a lot of good and there was a little bit of negative, and we'll talk more of the negative part when we talk about the power play here. But, you can see his facilitating, and I think that line of it's probably going to be Eklund, Granlund, and then Cunnin. You can see kind of that line really working together. Luke Cunnin had several golden opportunities because of Granlund and Eklund kind of setting him up, and just wasn't able to kind of put it home. I think Granlund's passing. I'm a little worried about the speed with Granlund, but he's still kind of working his way back from injury, so that hopefully he can kind of get back into shape a little bit here. So I don't want to harp too much on it as the guy's kind of working his way back from injury in his first action of the season. But I think with Granlund, it kind of feels very Nick Bonino-ish, where he's going to come in and kind of be that type of role for him. Maybe a little bit more of a distributor than Nick Bonino, but we saw Granlund playing on the penalty kill. We kind of saw him on all opportunities. I think the Sharks are going to kind of utilize him a lot tonight or throughout the season. And you just hope he doesn't kind of wear down like Bonino did, especially at the, where they had to make kind of the move from center to wing. But you can kind of see the same path for Granlund over the next 2 seasons with the Sharks, where he's probably going to be, probably started as a center and then as Bordeleau or Robbins or whomever else kind of is ready to take that center spot. I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of the guy between, because you're going to have Couture, when everyone's healthy, Couture, Hurdle, Sturm, Granlund, and then whoever kind of jumps in to take a spot. I wouldn't be surprised if Granlund is maybe the guy who kind of slides to the wing, very Nick Bonino-esque. So speaking of Bordeleau, I thought he had a pretty solid night. I think he kind of solidified himself at least for the short-term answer while Couture is injured. Scored another goal tonight. I know Quinn said he didn't like his first period, but he played better in the second, third period. And I can kind of see that too with Bordeleau. I like some of the plays he made where he was just kind of just making those little smart plays, right? And even the goal was caused by him kind of creating that forecheck, making the Kings Kings player to kind of make a pass that they weren't quite ready to make, and then Bordeleau was kind of the chaos that caused that goal. He was able to get it to Eklund, and Eklund got it right back to him for a for that goal right there. So yeah, I think Bordeleau's short term, at least a short term answer. I still think when Couture gets back, Bordeleau's probably headed to the AHL unless he really has a great start to the season. But I think for Bordeleau right now, it's just keep fighting for another day is kind of the strategy you need to have, and give them a reason to not send you back right now. So for the defense, so we didn't see Thrun tonight, which I thought was really interesting because I think you could make a valid argument that between him and Shakir Mukhamadullin, of course, back with the Shark or back with the Barracuda, but those two have been the best looking defensemen when with their all around game. And Thrun didn't play tonight. I thought that was interesting for a guy who's still kind of on that bubble. Maybe it's because Quinn wanted to see guys like Knizhov and Emberson, who I think are the other bubble defensemen. And I think if you had to put a pecking order on them, actually, we'll save that for the end. But it was interesting. I liked Emberson's game tonight. You saw that Quinn kind of put him in some spots right tonight, and it's kind of to test him. He was out there when the game was tied with less than 3 minutes left, and the third period. I thought Emberson made some good moves. He took a good penalty. I know it's weird to say, but Quentin Byfield had a breakaway. There was 2 breakaways tonight that the Sharks gave up, which was a little bit of flashbacks to last year, right? If you're going to be a more defensively sound team, you can't give up breakaways. But Emberson, I thought he took a good penalty. He kind of got a stick in there to keep Byfield from scoring, and then you hope that your good penalty kill unit can shut the door, and that's kind of what the Sharks did right there. So, he got on his horse, was able to, and Byfield, I know he's a young kid, but he's a big dude, right? And Emberson was able to kind of do what he had to kind of slow it down. Yes, he took a penalty, but that is a good penalty to take, and you hope that your penalty kill can kind of do the work for you to when the team kind of messes up there. So, I liked Emberson's game. I think the Sharks are going to have a huge decision between Emberson, Knizhov, and Thrun. And we'll talk about that in the final segment here when I do my final roster prediction. And then let's go with Blackwood, who I think was solid tonight. Made a couple nice saves. I think he probably wants the overtime goal back. And I know overtime goals are the 3-on-3. It's a little bit more chaotic. And Eklund maybe got probably put on Kempe, which you probably don't want to see, and then maybe Eklund might have blocked Blackwood a little bit, but still you're pretty square up to Kempe. Again, Kempe's a good player, so maybe that's one you might want back. But he looks kind of, especially if you're comparing him to Kakkonen, he just looks a little bit more. It doesn't look as calm, I would say, is the way to go. And I think Kakkonen kind of just has more of a calming presence than Blackwood right now. And again, both these guys, 2 games in the preseason, it's hard to kind of judge. But it'll be interesting to see who gets the nod on Thursday night, again, especially with a whole week's worth of rest. We've seen Kaapo Kakkonen play 2 really good games against the Vegas Golden Knights. Does he kind of ride him, especially with knowing what Kaapo Kakkonen can do, or do we see Blackwood, who's kind of the one of the Sharks' big acquisitions? So before we get into the power play, the chaos power play that was, and what I would, we'll talk about the power play and then make my final predictions and get kind of caught up on some of the roster moves. I do need to take a quick break here and talk to you guys about our good friends over at Bird Dogs, and it's still Still, I know we're in fall. Weather's still pretty nice, at least here in Fresno. I think it's gonna be 90 degrees again this weekend. So you still need your shorts right now. So bird dog shorts, the way to go with their khaki shorts, are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg and give you a truly sculpted look. They have, it's weird, but they have the built-in underwear. Very skeptical at first. Tried it on, an amazing product with the built-in underwear. It keeps things cooler, keeps things drier. You don't have to worry about things kind of sticking together as much, if you know what I mean, especially in the heat. And bird dogs, they're functional for any occasion, right? If you're like me, Saturdays are always crazy, right? If you got, maybe you got soccer in the morning with the kids, you're going to Costco, you're going to Target, then maybe in the evening you're hanging out at the pool, maybe you're going to the brewery, maybe you're cooking out, whatever you're doing, Bird Dogs has got you covered because, again, they're just like the best shorts ever. So go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl or enter the promo code lockedonnhl at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All right, so the chaos approach power play, right? If you're a new listener and you don't know, that's what I've been kind of nicknaming the 5 forward approach, and it's ever since right around the draft when it was kind of clear that Carlson is probably going to be on his way out. Thinking about what we would potentially see for the power play, and so we got our first taste of it tonight, and I feel good ish about it, and it's going to be chaotic, right? Especially when you're running this sort of power play that's not traditional. You don't have a defenseman up there, and Granlund, though, is my concern with the power play, right? Being on the point, and just because I don't know if he's got the speed or chops where if things go wrong, where it doesn't snowball on him a little bit, and but I mean, you do have to give it a power play. The power play has looked pretty solid in the preseason. I know it's preseason. You don't want to get over it, but the Sharks power play has scored in 5 out of the 6 games in the preseason, including tonight and including with the 5 forward unit tonight. But I really like the kind of the roles everyone is in. I'd be interested to see if maybe they end up switching Hoffman and Granlund, at least until Logan Couture comes back. We're having Hoffman because he does have that monster shot from the point, and kind of being able, and maybe switching the distribution from the point to having Granlund kind of along the wall and maybe working it that way where he can maybe slide to the point if you need him, but maybe kind of keep him closer to the half wall there, and work the power play that way. But I do worry about Granlund at the point just because of, I think the book will come out that if you pressure Granlund in that spot, and it maybe he's not used to like a defenseman, right? They're kind of used to that, like taking that pressure at the point and knowing kind of their outlets or knowing what to do. And I worry with Granlund where he just hasn't had those reps in this situation, especially early on, that this might be an issue for the Sharks power play, and you might give up a few shorthanded chances. And the Sharks did give up a couple shorthanded chances tonight. My ultimate fix is Logan Couture when Couture gets back to being healthy, because I think Couture has the kind of the defensive chops to where if things go badly, he can kind of make up for it. And I know he doesn't have the same speed that he used to, but I just think he's more defensively sound than Granlund in that spot. And I think we've seen him kind of play that point spot a little bit, or at least kind of high up and work his way down. So interesting to see what they do there. But overall, again, you're going to kind of live with this. You know, I was thinking the analogy of like holding the knife on the fingertip, and you can do it for a little bit, but at some point it is going to like fall and break or cut you, and that's going to be the chaos power play. It was interesting to see that Quinn really kind of relied on the first unit, the 5 forward unit, to kind of, I think maybe to let them gel a little bit more, because they've really only got a chance to run it in practice, and it's not the same, right, as running it in a game situation. So I wonder what the tweaking will be. The other thought is you just scrap the 5 unit and have Henry Thrun, who has been running the power play in the preseason, I think has looked pretty good at doing it. And it gives you a defensive presence in case, worst case scenario, I think Thrun can play that defensive role for you, or at least give it a good effort there. He is a defenseman, but then you are maybe not putting your 5 best players out there if you run that unit. So it's going to be interesting to see how Quinn kind of continues to tinker with this unit as the season goes on, and when you start to get like your fully healthy fully healthy Couture and everybody going through it. But I mean, hockey, people don't stay healthy all the time, so I'm sure it'll be a work in progress. Or if a guy like Eklund continues to grow, he's been kind of on that second power play unit. I think the second unit tonight was Bordeleau, Zadina, Eklund, and LeBanc, with Benning running the power play. And we just didn't get to see enough of it because it was mostly the top unit, despite the Sharks having 5 power play opportunities tonight. So, but again, I know it's preseason, you're trying to work out some of the kinks. So, interesting to see, again, with a whole week of practice here, if they can continue to work on that and try to get it going here a little bit. So, for the flip side with the penalty kill, I think another kind of clue for us why I think Eklund's going to make the team is Eklund got a lot of penalty kill opportunities, and he was playing with Nico Sturm, which I really like because you have the savvy Nico Sturm, who does have, he's got some quickness to him with Eklund, and we know Eklund's blazing speed where you can kind of work together. And I thought both of them just being very aggressive on the penalty kill. I think the Sharks penalty kill is going to continue to be good despite all the changes that we've seen from them. Looking at where this penalty kill unit at the beginning of last year to the penalty kill unit now, I think they're going to be able to kind of coach up these guys. And I think the Sharks are going to continue to have a good penalty kill unit. And the hope is, at least defensively, you can give a guy like Mario Ferraro, who's played way too many penalty kill minutes, a little bit of rest with some of the additions on the blue line this off season. Guys like Burrows, and then if Knizhov can stay healthy, or Thrun, I think you can play all 6 defensemen. Unlike last season, where you had to make up for Erik Karlsson, saving Erik Karlsson to do what Erik Karlsson does, which is run the power play and go, do everything he can 5-on-5, kind of saving him from having to play the penalty kill by using the other 5 guys. So hopefully a little bit more distribution of the minutes for their going into the season. But I think you got to feel pretty solid about optimistic. We'll say not solid. We'll say optimistic about where the special teams are going, just because I think Quinn can coach up that part of the game. And we've seen the penalty kill be really good for the past couple seasons. And I don't have any reason for that to change. And I think with the power play, yes, it's going to be a little weird. I think it's going to be a little funky beginning of the season, but as these guys kind of continue to work through it, I think the power play has an opportunity to go from one of the worst to being middle of the pack, which I think would be a huge bump for the Sharks. Again, go look at what Quinn did with the Rangers from before he got there to when he got there. You saw the power play really improve under David Quinn. So before we continue and I make my final roster predictions, also get caught up on a little bit of the news and who's here and who's gone and all that fun stuff, do need to take one more quick break and talk to you guys about our good friends over at Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't have to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. We can do that all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, because who likes waiting? Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed does all the hard work for you, right? Sponsor a job and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates with resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately after your post. With Instant Match, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million business worldwide that use Indeed to get great talent fast. So Indeed knows you're growing your own business. You make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applicants that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring today. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right. I caught up on a little bit of the news here. So Leon Gawanke placed on waivers. Of course, went through waivers. I know there were some people a little worried about that. I think we worry about waivers a little bit more than I think the teams do, because you just look like how many guys actually get claimed. It's a very small percentage, right? It does happen. Ty Emberson. But I think like if anybody wanted Leon Gawanke, they could have traded for Leon Gawanke this offseason, right? And Leon Gawanke was literally this close to going to play in Germany. Like he had signed a 4-year deal to go play in Germany before he got traded to the Sharks. So he's going to start his season with the Barracuda. And then if you need to pull him up, you can always pull him up. If you do like an emergency pull up, you don't actually. He doesn't need to pass through waivers again. There are some like you can only play X amount of games or keep him there for so long, but he is in your system, and if you need him, you can always pull him up. So, of course, 2 entry-level contract signs. First-round pick Quentin Musty signed his ELC, still with the Sharks, but I would assume he's probably heading back to Sudbury here soon. I know they played tonight on the 5th, and I think they probably play this weekend if I had to guess. Pulling up their schedule right now. But he signed his ELC deal. Basically, he is going to be the Sharks property for the next couple. So they play again on the Friday. Wow, they played 3 in a row. 3-3. Gross. What are we doing, guys? So they play Friday and then they play Saturday. Maybe he's back for Saturday. If not, they don't play again until the 13th. So maybe he hangs around until then, but I would assume they probably want to get him back to get his OHL year started. Quinn has basically said that as much. So, but yeah, he is going to be playing for. So yeah, he signed his ELC. Basically, it'll slide. Same thing with Eklund, right? It'll slide for the next 2 seasons as long as he doesn't play more than 9 NHL games during that time. It'll slide for the next couple seasons before it kicks in for that age 20. Or it's after 2 seasons basically. So yeah, for the age 20 season for him since he just turned 18. But yeah, he will be a San Jose Shark. So, and then Jake Furlong also signed his ELC. So he is the 5th round pick in the 2022 draft class. I really liked his game from this summer. He scored pretty well in the Q numbers are always a little bit inflated just because of the style of play they play over there. But I liked what we saw from him, especially in the rookie development camp and in the rookie face-off in Vegas. I liked what we saw from him. I think the Sharks are getting a really solid defensive player out of him. And if he can continue to kind of just grow his game a little bit, I think he's got the frame to be a solid player and be a nice 2-way player for the Sharks going forward. He's going to be going back to the Q. He actually played in the Q for the next 2 seasons. So we'll see. Next year he could potentially make the Barracuda. I think it's gonna be a lot like what we're seeing from Gannon Larocque, where it'll be a camp decision, and then they can either send him back to the Q or for 1 more year, or have him start his pro career. So his contract will also slide because again, he's just turned 19, so his contract should slide for another season. Just double checking on that. Furlong, yep, his contract will slide. So for 1 season, and then he will start his whatever. Even if he goes back to the Q, or if he starts with the Barracuda next year, he will be that first year will kind of kick in right there. So, all right, let's get to my final roster predictions. And here's what I got. So. Forwards, I think it's still pretty much the same, right? Barabanov, Bordeleau, Couture, who I think will start on IR, give you a little bit more flexibility, especially if you don't think he's going to be, if he's not going to be ready for the opening night, just put him on IR, bring him back when you're ready, right? Duclair, Eklund, Granlund, Hertl, Hoffman, Cunnin, LeBanc, Lindblom, Peterson, Sturm, Zadina, Zetterlund. So the Sharks keeping, that would be 15, but with Couture going on IR, I assume that's what I would do. But anyway, especially since he hasn't started skating yet, that's why I think it's IR for him. So with, I think Lindblom is your extra. And I kind of think Zetterlund's your extra right now. I think Peterson just shown a little bit more than Zetterlund right now. And I think Peterson does have a little bit of flexibility with center or wing if you need it. Not that you need it right now with the forwards that they have, but Lindblom has not had a solid, and I mean, you could try to waive him, and if you want to waive him and send him down to the AHL, you could. But it just, his contract, you'd basically save $1.1 million in space by sending him down. Because again, if anybody who's making more than that $1.125 million, you can basically kind of bury that in AHL, and the rest of it sits as a cap hit. It's not like the Sharks have to worry about their cap situation right now. They have plenty of cap space with no matter their configuration of players on the roster, they have plenty of cap space, right? But I think Lindblom is probably going to be your extra forward, and as soon as somebody gets hurt, you can bring him back up. And then I would assume Peterson and Zetterlund are probably kind of flip-flopping of who plays and who doesn't plays. But I think we're going to see it. Interesting to see what the eventual lines shake out to be, because we did see a little bit of a change tonight. We saw Granlund, Eklund, Cunnin, and then we saw Bordeleau, Zadina, Barabanov, and then it was it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be interesting to see kind of where we finish with the lines for tonight or going into the season. And again, we know they're probably going to change 1,000 times between the end of the season and now. But defense is where it gets interesting, right? You have your locks. Benning, lock. Burrows, I would safely say lock. Ferraro, lock. Vlasic, lock. Ruda, who I know didn't play, he's been coming back from injury. But if he's there, he's a lock. So it basically comes down to Knizhov, Thrun, and Emberson is that final spot. I think Shimmick is probably going to get waived to go to the AHL, even with his contract. Same thing with McDonald, right? I think they're both going to get waived. With Shimmick, right, you'll bury a little bit, but there will be a portion on the Sharks on the Sharks cap. Again, they don't have to worry about that cap space wise. So I think you have to go Thrun, Emberson over Knizhov. And here's my thinking with it. I think you waive Knizhov to try to sneak him down into waivers. So here's my thinking why I would try to go with Knizhov. I know he's a great story coming back from everything he's come through, but his cap, right? 2 years at $1.25 million. And maybe that second year keeps the team kind of thinking, I don't want to commit for 2 years for this guy. But if that's why I would go with Knizhov as the guy you have to cut here. And again, I know Henry Thrun still has waivers exempt. He can go, you can send him down without having to go through him passing through waivers. Emberson would have to pass through waivers. There's always the worry that a team might try to, snag him back, New York Rangers, and then he would have to go on to their NHL roster. But you hear this from Mike Greer, this competitiveness, right? Out of Emberson, Knizhov, and Thrun, which were the two best defensemen? And I think you have to say Thrun was the best out of all of them. And then I think you have to say Emberson was the second best. I know it's a smaller sample size of 2 games, but I just think those guys have looked better than Knizhov has this season. Knizhov to me just looks at it's just a step slow with him. And that could still be, I don't know if it's still working back from injury or whatever it is, but he just looks a step slow kind of compared to the other guys. So I would try to sneak him down. If he gets picked off, then he gets picked off. And, you yes, it sucks maybe potentially losing him, but I think you still end up with the two better defensemen in Emberson and Henry Thrun. And I think Thrun does stuff that nobody else really on the blue line can do right now. And I think Emberson is a better defenseman than Kenny Jave is right now. And he's also 2 years younger and on a smaller cap hit. So that's, and then of course, Blackwood and Capo Kakinen as your goalies. But yeah, that's my final roster. That's 23-ish with Logan Couture already on the IR. So Monday at 2 p.m. is the final countdown. Usually the Sharks are, I think we kind of know by Sunday night who's going to be on the team, because they have to kind of make those moves, right? So we'll full breakdown of the Sharks roster next week. I've got a fun interview with a San Jose Barracuda player. Also for you guys next week, we'll make some bold predictions about the Sharks season. Plenty of good stuff. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well. If you haven't already, go check out our season preview. We did a big NHL one where you can look. They broke it up by Western and Eastern Conference. So if you want to kind of find out the big stories around each team heading into the season, I also did my 5 things that to kind of watch for this season. So that's on the YouTube channel. It's about 10 minutes long. I did it with Erica from Locked On Kraken and kind of talked about the Sharks season and get you guys ready. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until Monday. Bye, friends.